is the book, The Blue Bar, and it's set in Mumbai, and it's about a police inspector and a bar girl in love, and they don't know that the same serial predator is stalking them both. So that's what it's about. So it's a literary thriller, and takes place over from Dashera to Diwali, so within the period of those 20 days. So that's the timeline of the
Wow.
book. Yeah. And as to the one was, I don't know how you remember this. It was quite some time ago. And I took 1 month off social media. So I was away from everything, not just social media. I wasn't even calling my mom and
Wow.
not calling my husband, doing nothing. Just sitting in one place and writing. And that I've realized is a luxury that a professional writer cannot afford. So the sequel that I'm doing right now, there's no way I can do that. I have to be out and about. And right now I'm doing the developmental edits of the sequel to the Blue Bar.
Wow.
So that's where I am.
So tell us, Damyanti, how did this writing bug bite you? I mean, since when did you think that, okay, now I want to write and this is all I'm going to do, and these are the kind of books that I'm going to write, and this is how my backdrop is going to look from the future?
All of that sounds extremely organized, and I'm not organized at all. So my training is not in writing. I'm a trained fashion designer. So that's what I used to do back in India. Then long years ago, I got married. I came to Malaysia and I had no job. And my husband wasn't happy with the fact that I had no job because obviously I was used to having a job. So he said, well, you should, you have a degree in English. He'd read this book called The World is Flat. And he said, well, you can write. You have an honors in English. I'm sure somebody will buy what you're writing. So he bought me this, really old secondhand laptop with two keys missing, I and Y. And I copy pasted them off the internet and wrote an article, which I managed to sell for $20 US.
Wow.
And I'm talking about many years back. And I was fresh out of India. So $20 was a lot of money. I was like, yay.
Tell us sometime, how were you able to sell an article for $20? I think now it's going to be even difficult, no, for a new writer
No,
to do that.
I did. There used to be a website, the name of which I've forgotten now, where they used to, this was a long time ago. So where they used to kind of put up these articles where you can put up the articles for sale, and they would do everything
Okay,
to
great.
marketing, etc. And they would give you a percentage. So, it was like 60-40. So they took 40% and 60% $20 US. But after I started writing, I kind of developed a few clients, bit of word of mouth. And then they said, well, one of my editors said, your writing is too flowery. You're writing about domaining, computer architecture. You're writing about health issues and it's too flowery. Why don't you go to like a
Fiction.
fiction writing workshop and get rid of that bug? And here we are. I'm still getting rid of that bug. So that's really how it happened. I never planned to be a writer, and even now, I think more of myself more as a reader, not so much as a writing is. I think something I do. I don't really feel like I am a writer.
Okay,
Yeah.
you are a writer, Damyanti. You have written, I think this is your second book, right?
Yes, this is my second book. My first was You Beneath Your Skin, and this is second.
Yes, so two books. And since how many years have you been since that writing workshop?
No, actually, that writing workshop, or maybe at the same time, I've forgotten, but I started blogging in 2008, and that's where I publicly started writing something. So I started posting. So my blog, The Daily Write, now it turned 15 this year. I started it on the 8th of January in 2008. So
Wow.
that's ancient. So I have a teenage blog now. And it is still going strong. So yeah, that's
Your
how long
starting, yeah, your
I
starting
started.
point. Great. So writing daily was probably one of the inspiration that even I got from this book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron
Yeah.
that a lot of people keep talking
Yes.
about.
Yes, I read it.
But I'm
I
so
mean,
not a morning person. But tell us how this. So I mostly write my morning pages in the evening or in the night. But tell us how your daily writing habit has kept you sane, and um, how did you go about it when you absolutely had no clue about the destination, let's say, or you did not really plan your destination? How did you go about it?
yeah, I mean, I never thought I'll end up as a writer. I just kind of liked writing a lot. Like, not enjoyed it, but I felt compelled somehow. So I would try not to write for a while because writing has always made me miserable. I really don't know who these people are who find so much joy in writing and it gives them so much pleasure and it makes their hearts sing and there's cuckoos and, birds flying and hearts flying. That doesn't happen to me. I'm a miserable person. My writing is miserable. It makes me miserable. I can't help doing it, so I do it because I kind of I say, oh, this makes me really miserable. I'm not going to write anymore. And I've told my husband so many times, I'm just going to stop writing, and then I'm back again at it, and he'll be like, oh, you stopped writing, is it? I'm like, yeah.
So
I
what part of writing makes you miserable? Does it make you like super hyper active and it makes you think a lot, like
everything.
overthinking?
Everything, the whole thing makes me miserable. It's like, I don't know, the way I it's a bit of a gory metaphor, but I mean, I'm sure everyone will forgive me because I'm a crime writer. So when you were kids, or when at least when I was a kid, a long, long, long time ago, I would fall and I would get these kind of wounds, like, and it would heal over, it'll scab
And then you
over,
scratch it
and yeah, and then you pick at the scab, and then you go and pick at the scab, and it's not healed, but you go pick at the scab anyway.
anyway.
Yeah, so to me, that's what writing is like.
Amazing. I haven't heard this kind of an honest mm, admission of the misery, which I'm sure a lot of writers go through. I mean, writing is a very, very thankless profession. For a very long time, you are totally invisible. Nobody knows you. Nobody cares what you're
I'm
writing.
sure there are a lot of writers who find a lot of joy. I don't know, but I'm sure they exist. And I wish much joy to them. And I love them. I send them my love and everything. I'm not one of them, and this is who I am. And I think all writers are different just because all people are different. So, part of the journey is finding out who you are and then who you are as a writer. And I don't think that journey ever ends. That just goes on.
So, what drew you to this particular story? What drove you to write it? What compelled you to write about this girl and this police officer who are being stalked by a serial killer? You must
Okay.
have lived in Bombay, so Bombay would have been like part of
I
your.
Yeah, I have spent some time of my life in Mumbai, not too much, but a fair amount. And I started writing this in this workshop, I think in 2017 or 8, I'm not sure. I think maybe 2018, where there was this workshop by Ramesh Gunasekera, and he gave us this writing prompt where he said, well, write about somebody who is being watched, but they
Hmm,
don't know they're being watched. So that became the first chapter of the
chapter.
Blue Book. So there's Tara, who's at a crowded railway station. And we know that there's something going on because she's acting as per instructions on the phone and she's posing and everything. And in the end we realize that she has to leave the station in 3 minutes. And she doesn't know what will happen if she doesn't leave the station in 3 minutes. And we know that somebody's watching her. So that was that became the
The
first chapter.
initial seed of the
Yeah, so
novel.
I had written this piece as, like, it was not really a flash piece, it was like a vignette. It really didn't
Hmm.
have so much of a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was more of a beginning. And so I had
Yes.
just left it there. And after I finished You Beneath Your Skin, my agent at that time, he said, well, what do you think you're going to do next? And I'm like, I don't know, with you beneath your skin, whether I'm writing a sequel. I'm ready to write another story. And he's like, what do you have? So one of the ideas that I had was this one. And he's like, yeah, let's see what you're going to do with this one. And then there was Tara, and I realized that there was this line in this vignette where there was this constable who was making her heartbeat faster. And then I said, who's this constable? And then that constable became Arnav. And then the whole story came. Then
So
the villain.
your characters were speaking, at some point your characters were speaking to you and kind of guiding you through it. Do you believe in that?
I don't know whether it's quite so poetic. In my case, I kind of have at least one voice which comes to me, which I start writing about, like writing, like to me, I don't hear the voice speaking to me. To me, I can write in that voice. Like I can write in that voice. And to me, my speaking voice
almost become that person and start.
Yeah, because for me, I have to method act my way into my writing. So I'm not technically trained. So I've never done an MFA. Nobody's taught me how to write. I've attended a few workshops here and there, but I'm mostly self-taught. So my teachers are all dead. They're all dead and buried a few feet under the ground, because, those are the kind of books we read, because as you know, in India, we did not have access to we did not have what's young adult and middle grade. We didn't have all this, we were reading what everybody else was reading. And I was reading Sidney Sheldon or Alistair MacLean, and I was reading the entirety of Shakespeare, and there was this huge Bernard Shaw, and for one whole month I was rude to critics because Bernard Shaw was rude, so I was rude. So I was copying all the dialogues and being very sarcastic. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So for me, when I write my characters, I don't know if they speak as much, but I begin to write like that. So I kind of method act way into it. I don't really have a lot of specific techniques, but over the years now that I've written 4 novels, so there's another novel which is already almost submission ready, and there's the sequel that I've written. Now with 4 novels that I've written, I feel that I have a bit of my own technique, whatever you
feel confident about.
I don't feel confident about it. I just feel that there's a process. There is a process that I have. I could call it a process. I will never go so far as to be confident about my writing. That's like, no. That therein lies the road to perdition and suffering. I cannot be confident. The minute I'm confident, I fall flat on my face like that, like a frog. No.
It somehow shows my internet is unstable. I don't know why. And therefore it keeps freezing your face, but nevertheless I can still hear your voice properly. So tell me, so 4 books already. Tell me, how do you go about planning for these stories? I mean, does it require a lot of, let's say, research or getting into these environments about these? I mean, your cover almost made me remember this movie called Chandni Bar by Madhur Bhandarkar, long back, by Taboo. That was right. So I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So do you get into these environments? Do you do some visits? Do you talk to someone, or do you feel that you know this world?
Well, I did a lot of research for You Beneath Your Skin, and I did a fair amount of research for the Blue Bar. I don't know how much research I'll be able to do for the subsequent novels, because when you write at a professional level in a genre, then what happens is they're like, you've got only 1 year from one novel to the other. So my novel is being published now, the Blue Bar is out now, and the sequel is supposed to be out on the 24th of October this year. So there's not a lot of gap. So I have been writing the sequel along with the editing of the Blue Bar. So it's been like, so I don't know if I can say with confidence that I would be able to research a lot.
Mm.
But with the sequel, I was able to work in some of the research I had done for the Blue Bar, because the setting is exactly the same. And a lot of it was speaking to people online because COVID. I wasn't really traveling as much.
Yeah.
For the forthcoming novels, I really don't know, because I'm writing proposals now, and it'll all depend on which proposal the editor says yes to, or if
Okay.
I have to put in writing, or how. So this is a completely different way of approaching writing, where I'm learning how to do it. So I've written a 5,000 word proposal for one book, and another 5,000 word proposal for another book, and then maybe I'll just throw them away if the editor doesn't like them.
Wow.
But
So what
maybe
does
I'll
a
make it.
5,000 word proposal look like? I mean, how much do you tell about the characters, or do you give a feel of your writing style, the plot,
Since I
idea?
am completely ignorant about all this, I have written the entire thing. So I have written from beginning to end. So I have written the beginning of the novel, the middle of the novel, and the end of the novel
So you
in
expand
5,000.
5,000 into 50 once the proposal gets.
I don't know, because that's a process I haven't done so far. Or maybe I have. No, I have. I have done it so far with the sequel to this one, which is not named yet. There I did have, like, because they signed me for a 2-book deal. They said, we like Arnav and Tara very much, but we will sign you for 2 books. What do you say? I said yes. And then I was stuck with, since you haven't, I mean, since I'm not supposed to spoil the book, but the ending of this book, where it ends right now, and I hope it's acknowledgement speech, so it's okay, I'm not spoiling anything. But the ending of the book is where the new book begins. So even
Okay.
though they can be read as standalones, a lot happens in this book that kind of dictates what will happen in the
The
next
next
one.
one.
I actually had to write a sort of synopsis of the novel, and it was a completely new experience, writing something which I had no clue that
Hmm.
whether it's going to work out that way or not. But so far, it seems like it has
Hmm.
worked out. Like, the story has changed, but not the story itself. It's the telling of it has changed.
Got it.
So, I have added some points of view, I have taken out certain things, I've done pacing or whatever it is. But yeah, like, the hero is still the same and the villain is still the same. So I'd say the story is more or less the same. It's a altogether different matter that in the last 1.5 months I've thrown out 30,000 words once, and 45,000
Oh,
words the
that
next
must
time.
have hurt you.
No, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't hurt me. I
Yeah, because
know.
that's what I think Stephen King or someone said, that writing is rewriting. I mean, people think that it's a very glamorous thing that you
Well,
sit and type.
Stephen King. I have no clue what he does to produce the tomes he produces. I'm convinced he has some kind of a clone or alter ego or whatever. How can he write that much
Divine
and
intervention,
still
I don't know.
do everything he does? I have no clue. But for me, I know that even now, craft wise, I don't think I can, I cannot, I can see better now. I can
Hmm.
see the overview of a structure better now. I can
Hmm.
see the story from top better now than I
Hmm.
could with Beneath Your Skin. But I still don't know enough that I don't have to throw stuff out. So
Hmm.
who knows? Someday it'll happen. The other book that I've written, it's a bit of women's fiction. The other one, which is supposed to go on submission now, that's not prime, and that I wrote from beginning to end without much of a change. And my current agent likes it, and we might go on submission with that. So I don't know. I think each novel comes with its own,
Yeah.
like they say in India, we are a very fatalistic lot. And someone asked me the other day saying, are you superstitious? And I said, yes, I am. But I'm very Indian that way, that I believe. And I just believe that, like, this book, it has its own fate, like,
Yeah,
independent of me, and how it comes
correct.
to me, and how I treat it. Just because I've written 4 novels doesn't mean that the fifth one, the same process will work out. I will
Hmm.
try, but
Yeah.
there's comes with no guarantees, because you're making something out of nothing,
Hmm.
literally. creating a world out of nothing.
Nothing.
You're borrowing, you're stealing, you're killing, you're doing all kinds of things, right?
Excellent.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, but I don't have that hubris. I don't think. Mostly, I think of myself as taking dictation. Like, I just feel like it is all coming to me from somewhere and I'm kind of channeling it. I don't know how much of, it is me. I have no clue who that is. I don't know, but there might be somebody.
This is the part I love so much about doing these author interactions and talking. I mean, I just get sometimes so amazed and overwhelmed by what goes into an author's mind, as in how complex and how crazy it can get after a point of being in this creative process, because it demands so much of your energy and so much of your headspace, so to say. But coming back to the blue bar, you also mentioned that it is a story between Dashera and Diwali, and you have like really paced it between. And I have always been very fascinated by these kind of, crunched timelines and things happening. And so, what are some of your inspiration to write these kind of books? And what has been your like reading journey like? Like, what have you read so far? And
I
how did you
have to
think
say
about
that
this timeline thing?
I have to say that I've read very few of these crunchy timeline thrillers. I haven't. And one of the things that happens to me, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because some of these thrillers really leave no impact on my consciousness. So I don't remember what happened in it at all. I know that it happened very fast. I know that I read it in like, sometimes I read it in two sittings, but later you ask me to tell you what happened, I'm not really sure. Sometimes I
Mm.
remember the character, sometimes I don't. Most of
It's just
my
that process which is enjoyable, doesn't
yeah,
leave you with
yeah,
anything.
yeah. It's a
Yeah,
and to me, I find that my reading has been more literary throughout. So, as in India, you always end up reading the classics because there's nothing else there. So you're
yeah.
sitting there and reading Charles Dickens, and you're reading Jane Eyre, and you are reading all these novels. You're reading Austen, and you're reading essentially the novels which began the novel form, right? And
Mm,
now we stand on the shoulders of giants, things that we do very naturally. Uh, took took almost a century to evolve, right? You
mm.
read a novel from the 1950s, which is ancient history for people now.
Yeah.
You read a
Let's say
novel from
War and Peace or George Orwell,
or you read
Jane
read
Austen.
from the
Yeah,
1850s, 1870s, 1900s, and then read late 1990, 95, and then read again 2010, and then read 2021. And you will find that there's been like and ever since there's been this proliferation of screen
yeah, yeah.
storytelling. Right? It has completely changed the way how storytelling is. You even watch a
Mm.
movie from like 20 years ago and you're like, get to the point, damn it. Like,
Yes.
get to
We're
the
so
point.
impatient, no, as a consumer.
Yeah.
We've
So
become
the
very
thing is,
impatient.
the way storytelling is has changed a
Mm,
lot. So I don't know
that's
whether
true.
my reading keeps up with this kind of
Mm,
stories I write. Sometimes I nowadays end up reading stuff because I know I have to write it. So I kind of hope and pray by osmosis it comes in. But even with crime writing, I find more in common with someone like, let's say, Tana French, who's much more atmospheric and not pace, 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 pace.
mm, mm,
Even someone like Harlan Coben, where you have the characters and everything is character driven. So for
mm.
me, my writing, I find the sort of writer I am, I wouldn't be able to just completely think of a plot. So when I'm telling you I've written these 5,000 words, actually before writing these 5,000 words, I have written another 10,000 words trying to figure out who these
Figure out.
characters are.
Yeah.
Because for me, characters create that propulsion because plot is character in action, right? So unless I know who it is and what they want, what they need, what they, need to get what they want, what are their secrets, what are their wounds,
Mm,
what makes them tick, and
mm,
what are their fatal flaws, all of these things, unless I know them quite well,
You
I
can't do
really
the
don't
plot.
know what I can't do the plot because the plot begins at quite a late stage of this character's biography, because it begins at a stage where things will begin to go wrong for this character. You're not meeting the
Yes.
character
Yes.
at, in their beginning. So it's not like you're not reading Tolstoy right now, right? You're writing, when you're writing a crime novel, you are meeting a flawed hero and a flawed heroine. You are, and
Absolutely.
not children, and you're not watching them grow. So yeah, all of that has to be taken into account. For me, it just everything stems from character. So when I look at my reading and my writing, I find that they don't match as much, because my writing came from, I started writing literary short stories, and that's still, you know like, only now with the second book I have exceeded the number of words published with short stories with my second book. But I would have published about 60,000-70,000 words of short stories before this. So you know novel was quite a late entry into my life. So yeah, they don't match. So if you say that, Damyanti, what do you read and how does that impact your writing? The
They're
answer
very
is very,
different.
yeah, it's a bit convoluted. Yeah, that's why I struggle so much with crime writing. I don't know why I do it.
Damyanti, thank you so much for giving us the time and telling us everything that goes behind writing these fabulous book. I love the cover. It's so gorgeous. I just saw that it's on Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Unfortunately, I can't hold that. So I'm going to experience the book in Kindle. I love to read stories around Mumbai, so I'm
It's
definitely
also
going
on
to.
Audible. So if you get the Kindle
Wow.
Unlimited version, you will get the Audible immediately.
Amazing. That just makes my life so easy now. So I'm going to get there very soon, and I wish you all the best with all the sequels that you're writing. And yeah, I mean, I will also keep following your tweets and all that is going around your writing life. So thank you so much for being here, and I wish you all the best, Damyanti.
Thank you so much for having me, Priyanka, and thank you for everything you do with Writersmelon. You guys are doing a fabulous, fabulous job, and wishing you all the best with it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.